exactly what ADHD task paralysis looks like. You can stare at your to-do list knowing exactly what needs to be done, but instead you do nothing for hours on end until suddenly it's dark outside. Whether you have ADHD or not, finding motivation can feel impossible sometimes. But there is some good news. Motivation isn't this magical thing that you either have or don't. It's a skill. And once you understand how your brain actually works, you can trigger this skill on demand. So today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 exact steps I use to get unstuck from paralysis and actually get things done. Stick around to the end for the bonus one that literally nobody talks about. I'm Josh Budd, and if you struggle with getting started, procrastination, or just feel stuck right now, you're in the right place. On this channel, I share real systems that actually work in real life, especially if you're ADHD or just easily distracted. Over the past 8 years, I've gone from a total problem child, getting expelled from every school in my area and being told I'm going nowhere, to a 3-time profitable founder and business graduate, and probably the most productive person in most rooms. And I did it all just by learning the science behind ADHD productivity. So let's start with a quick breakdown of why motivation feels so slippery. It's not actually as simple as just being lazy, it's actually brain chemistry. And the main player here is dopamine. Think of dopamine as your brain's go button. It helps you start on tasks, stay focused, remember the steps to achieve them, and actually enjoy finishing something. When our dopamine levels are balanced, we feel in the zone. We can start, we can keep going, and ride the satisfaction of checking things off. But when dopamine is low, even the small stuff like sending an email feels impossible. Without that activation energy, we sit on the couch knowing what to do, but still unable to do it. When you have ADHD, your relationship with dopamine is very different to others, which means you also need to do most things differently. You've probably heard productivity gurus tell you a million times to do the hardest thing first. For the love of God, please do not listen to them. For a lot of people, that really does work. But if you're ADHD or you just really lack motivation, it is dreadful advice that you should not take. With ADHD, starting the hardest thing makes your brain run away from the task. I mean, think about it. What's the first thing you do when you look at a really big task on your list? You will grab your phone and scroll, or open emails, or even clean your entire house instead of that one thing, right? So if you're ADHD, you can flip this on its head. Don't start with something hard. Instead, start with something enjoyable or easy that you absolutely know you can complete. Finishing that easy thing will start to create dopamine in your brain. Then you can use that dopamine as activation energy to tackle a slightly bigger task, and so on, and so on, and so on. But this still requires balance though, because your cheeky brain will still try and get away with doing 10 smaller things rather than actually building up to something bigger. So it's really important to set your intentions before you start a session. Now let's get into the juice of it. Here is my exact 5-step blueprint that you can actually copy and use today to make sure you almost always have the energy to get stuff done, even when ADHD is trying to get in the way. Step 1 is a phenomenon called dopamine bridging. Wishing for motivation won't make it appear, but like I mentioned earlier, you can trigger it when you need it, simply by doing something you actually enjoy right before jumping into focus. But keep it short. Some of my personal favourite quick dopamine boosters are listening to one energizing song, or making my favourite drink, or even taking a 5-minute walk outside. And this shouldn't be mistaken for procrastination. It's strategically bringing your dopamine levels up so you have enough of them to start and get through that task. It's a really common neuroscience technique called dopamine bridging, and it's crazy effective for ADHD. I know a 1-hour YouTube video does not count as dopamine bridging. So your action step 1 is pick one activity you enjoy and use it as your launch button for starting big tasks. Over time, you'll even condition your brain to link that boost with getting into focus mode. Step 2, for big projects, build an emotional why. ADHD makes us short-sighted. Without an obvious emotional connection, some tasks feel really pointless. Our brains ask us, why bother? And if the answer isn't strong enough, motivation won't show up. But there is a really simple fix for big, overwhelming projects. You grab a sticky note or type this somewhere on your laptop and just ask yourself, why am I doing this? And every answer you get, you dig one layer deeper and ask why again. And you keep digging until you hit something deeply, deeply personal. What you're looking for is something like, to be a better father to my children. And once you've got that, you write that final answer down and you put it somewhere you literally cannot avoid seeing. So the second action step is, if the task is really big, you write down your deepest why for doing it and put it on a sticky note before you start and keep it in front of you. If you're still with me and you're finding this video useful so far, drop a like on the video so I know. Now, step 3. Very cliche, but it works. Make it smaller. The reason big tasks feel impossible is because your brain just sees the whole mountain and all the effort that's required to get to the top of the mountain. The trick is to shrink it down to pebbles. This way, your brain knows that reward is coming after much less effort, so it's much happier to get started. Here are 2 tasks that achieve the exact same outcome: clean the kitchen. But you tell me which you'd rather get started on. And yes, that first task is small, but 9 times out of 10, once you get started, momentum just carries you the rest of the way anyway, because of dopamine bridging, like we said. I even use an app called Neuro to make this exact breakdown for me, and all I have to do is speak. It literally takes all the effort out of planning. Link is in the description if you want to try that. So action step 3 is the classic, break it down, but also with the caveat of using an app like Neuro to make it even easier. So getting started is just crazy easy. Now this next one is the most effective of them all, and that's step 4. Use a body double. This is the closest thing to a silver bullet for getting stuff done as ADHD. And in case you're living under a rock, body doubling is when you work on your own task in the presence of somebody else. No talking, you just exist near each other, and it even works virtually. For some reason, when somebody else is present, the brain reframes the task as a social event, and then you naturally want to follow the social norms happening around you, which means actually doing the work. I've even seen people use this to clean their house. You can do this in person with a friend, or there are loads of apps which connect you with groups of body doublers who are all getting stuff done together. I'll put a couple of options in the description. And I'm sure most of you know how effective this is. Most of us will let our house fall into chaos for 3 days, but as soon as someone calls you up for a catch-up, it's suddenly a professional cleaner just because somebody else is. So action 4 is find a body double buddy, that's a tongue twister, or an online community to make it easier to get stuff done. Now, step 5, the final step, is to build a done list. You may have heard this before, but if you haven't tried it yet, you really, really should. It's really effective at making all these things we mentioned today stick long term. Most of us finish something, and even if it's a really big achievement, we instantly jump to the next task, or we just do something completely different, and we don't give it enough recognition. The problem with that is that we're training our brain to never feel rewarded. And no reward means no motivation. Instead, keep a list. I use Neuro as well for mine, for all the things that you've accomplished. The very act of adding this to your list intentionally forces your brain to recognize its achievement, and in turn makes you feel good, creating a positive feedback. And you can even take this a step further by giving yourself a positive reward every time you do a big task. But this reward has to be something you genuinely want but have been resisting. And this is basic neuroscience. You're basically turning yourself into one of Pavlov's dogs. The more you celebrate, the more your brain starts craving that feeling, which fuels future motivation, and the loop continues. So the 5th and final action step for you is to keep a done list and reward yourself after big accomplishments. But before we wrap up, I want to drop one bonus one, which is actually one of my favorites and probably the most underrated, and it's working out when your energy peaks. ADHD affects most of us in pretty similar ways, but each of us as an individual has an energy peak pattern. Some people are night owls, some people love working in the morning. The best thing I ever did was find out when my energy was highest, lean into it, and not let any other things get in the way. For example, I never take meetings in the morning because that's when I do all my deep focus work, using all the things I mentioned. So find when you work best and protect that time for doing the important stuff. So let's recap the exact 5-step blueprint to get unstuck and create motivation on demand. Do something you enjoy, like make your favorite drink just before you do the hard thing. Work out your deepest why for really big. Break it down and make step 1 stupid easy. Do it with a body double, keep a done list, and if you do all of that at your peak energy time, you will honestly be unrecognized. So stop waiting for motivation and use this blueprint to start creating it on demand. If you want a way to make all of this and your life in general easier, check out what we're building at Neuro. It's an AI personal assistant engineered specifically for ADHD brains that makes getting unstuck and into action 10 times easier. She's live now and completely free to use, and I'll leave a link in the description.